Industry Council of SA. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Kaurna people. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of First Nations people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and water of South Australia. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands where you all join us from today and the First Nations people participating in this webinar. I think many of you have joined our In Conversation webinars before, but just to remind everyone, these are part of our business development program, and it's to provide wonderful operators like yourselves with the insights and advice that can help you with your business planning and operations. And none more important than talking about business planning and ops today, right guys? So while I'll be asking a number of questions of our guests, please don't hold back, pop your questions in the chat and we'll throw to those at any point during the conversation. Please do keep your microphones on mute and for everyone's information, this session will be recorded and distributed to all registered attendees afterwards. So let's jump straight in. Today, we are joined by our very valued major partners, Altitude Advisory. The team at Altitude take a really personal approach in helping businesses and families with advice, support and vision that comes from years of experience helping thousands run better businesses. We're joined by Director Kristen Buick. Hello, Kristen. And Senior Business Advisor Kathy Faulkner to unpack some of the common challenges that they're helping their clients with and breaking down and helping you to understand what a business advisor is and how they can help. So thank you, Kathy and Kristen, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. Look, let's just start off with an altitude. An altitude. Let's start off with an
yes. Let's start with an altitude.
Let's start high. Tell us about Altitude Advisory. And for those that haven't engaged a business advisor before, what do you do? What should they be thinking about? And as a tourism operator, how can that help them in their business?
Yeah. It's such an awesome question. We find that a business advisor sounds like a scary title and people don't really know what it is. So we are accountants by trade, but we use our accounting knowledge to apply it to businesses so that we can make smart decisions about what the next move is. And it's not just for massive business, it's for all business. And it can be little questions. It doesn't have to be big, major, I'm doing a merger and acquisition of a $200 million. It doesn't mean that at all. It can be something as simple as a business that turns over $100,000. It can be a touch point or a touchstone just to have a sounding board for decisions. Would you agree?
Yes. And it can be anything from looking at your workforce to looking at your, whether you're achieving goals and what you might need to do to sort of get to those objectives, like a vast array of different things that we do for clients as they need them.
Yeah. And I suppose just to add on to that, one of the things that we set our mind to here is that because business advisory seems to be just for the big end of town, and it's not. We have tried to set a business advisory team here who build goals for people's vision for the future. It doesn't mean you want to rule the world, or it might not mean, but whatever your goals are will help you work towards those. So knowing where you want to go is really helpful too.
Yeah, great. And I guess just in terms of where you are, you're metro based, but you've got to reach out into our regions as well.
Yeah, we're based in Norwood, not right in the city, easy parking.
Yeah.
And we love the Eyre Peninsula. So we have an office over in Tumby Bay that, whilst not permanently manned, we've been there for nearly 15 years now. Someone is there every single week. We also have offices in Tintinara and Woodner, and we spend a bit of time also in Clare and McLaren Vale.
Yeah, great. I just thought that was important to touch on because over 60% of our members and many of the people on the line today are all out in region. So you understand those nuances of running small business, running different size businesses across
in
the
different
states.
Places, 100%. And we do lots of travel. We love to travel, so happy to see people too. And being eyeballing people and really being approachable and present is important wherever they are.
Absolutely. And that's why we all hit it off so well, right? It's about the people side of things and that we're here to help.
Yeah, it's everything. That's why we do what we do.
And it's definitely a not one size fits all for us. It's very bespoke. Whenever we're working with a client, we try not the relationship's really important, and then we start to understand what the processes are that we might need to take to help achieve objectives.
Yeah.
Great. All right, we're going to dive into some key themes. Let's start with cash flow management. It's critical to any business, but even more so when times are tough, as we hear at the moment. Can you talk us through why it's so important for businesses to keep their eye on their cash flow, and what are your top tips around doing that in these tough times?
Well, cash flow is the thing that drives business. That you can be the most profitable business in the world, but if you're not having your customers pay you in a timely way, or you've let some costs blow out, then no cash means that the business struggles. And the other thing that I see a lot is that if your cash flow is really tight, a lot of business operators spend a lot of time and focus on where's the next dollar going to come in, whereas realistically, if you've got that under control, you can focus on what you do best, which is providing excellent service to your customers and making profit.
And investing in places. You have options to invest. If you have no cash flow, you cannot go the next step. Yeah. So it really is critical.
Absolutely. And so what do you suggest businesses consider when they're trying to manage their costs and outgoings? Do you see any common mistakes around cutting costs and so forth?
I think the biggest mistake we see is that people just don't know where the money goes. So our focus when we deal with people is to try and best predict what's coming up. We can do a little bit of a waste audit. Where are we spending money? Where should we be pulling back? And what's really key. And so making sure we pay our suppliers is key, obviously, because otherwise we can't keep selling stuff. But there are other overhead costs that we might need to keep tight. Your number one focus when you're looking at your cash flow is trying to get it to be predictable. You want to know what's coming.
Understand the ebb and flow, especially in tourism, which can be quite seasonal. You always want to know sort of where your pressure points are going to be, because you might be flying along in the high season and then get to a point where the income dries up a little bit. You need to understand where that is so that you can plan for what you do with that sort of dip in incoming funds.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess we're hearing that a lot from our members at the moment around that. We have had some really good seasons, and now tourism operators talk about forward bookings, and what we're hearing is those forward bookings are not looking great, and so there's that indicator of that cash flow potentially drying up.
Yeah, it's a tricky one too, isn't it? Because we're also coming into budget time, and usually what we see is that before budget, people all get a bit scared and they don't spend any money. And once the budget's announced, then there's a little bit of a sigh of relief usually. So hopefully that particular juncture is soon over.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Those bigger factors at play, right?
And things people cannot control. Yeah. And so trying to understand the stuff that we can't control, and we don't know more than what everyone else knows about what the government's going to announce, but we certainly can interpret it and help people understand what it means for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So if cash flow is king, we'd be remiss not to talk about profitability. So can you talk us through the importance of measuring the profitability of business, both their products and service, particularly for a tourism business where revenue is so dependent on customer expenditure?
Yeah, so true. I would have thought that pricing would have been, profitability is important, but I think valuing yourself is really important. And maybe when we consider profitability, it's just an outcome of doing all of the other things right.
Yeah, I think that's right. And understanding sort of, what happens to your net profit line when different things in your profit and loss actually sort of I don't want to use the word pivot, but pivot, because you will get an understanding if you understand your profit and loss and what all the sort of the little switches are. You'll be able to understand what that might do if you make a couple of changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the education piece, I was just with a client earlier, and one of the things they said to me is they just don't really understand how things work what is the net profit ratio and how do we get it? And also, if I'm making a profit, why have I no cash? And so the relationship between profitability, understanding its link to your revenue, and is your pricing right, so important. So the education piece and truly understanding is one of the things that we love to help people do. I think too often we have advisors who just say, don't worry, I've got a handle on that. But you as the owner, you don't have an understanding. And so you don't know which lever to pull when.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. It's that empowering the businesses to understand and
100%.
make their own decisions with assistance should they need it. But yeah, not being blindly being guided through these decisions, I
Yes,
guess.
absolutely. And also, I think one of the other things that we do is we compare ourselves a lot against other businesses too in price point. But how about if you're offering something that's better than what the person you're comparing to is? Should you not price it higher and really see that value for yourself and then your profit? The outcome is the profit.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we can dive a bit deeper, I'm a business owner and I need to think about where to put my own time and money. How can I identify what my high paying activities are? And I guess the flip side to this is how do I make an informed decision when I'm better off paying someone else, whether that's an employee or outsourcing?
This is something that I have conversations with clients about a lot, because often you've got, if you're a smaller operator and you're really reliant on yourself to be able to go out and do the tour or sort of cater for the accommodation or whatever it is, you've got so many competing things in your everyday. Okay. And sometimes what I've done is I've asked a client to keep a little mini diary for, a week or two to get a real understanding of where they do spend their time. And you'll find that there's often a few surprises in that little piece. I don't know whether you've had that.
No, I completely agree. And it's usually in the administrative side. But if we think about our tourism operators, when they're involved in tourism and they've started their own business, the essence of what they're trying to deliver in the experience is them. They're trying to give an experience that they would want when they went somewhere else. And it comes from a passion and from a love. So I would definitely encourage people to do more of reflecting on what is the experience we're trying to provide and how can I best disseminate that to my team, or how can I do that part better? That's your number one high payoff activity. And then everything else we should prioritize for sure. But administrative tasks like bookkeeping, maybe you're not excellent at keeping the books and you need some help. And this is quite an affordable thing to have someone else to do. But understanding what makes people come to this business, and is it the essence of me? And if it is, then spend heaps of time doing that.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm just thinking that through, the trade-off paying a bookkeeper or doing it yourself. Do you help the business owners to understand the value of their time so that if I'm thinking it might take someone who's not great at it 5 hours to do bookkeeping, which a bookkeeper could do in 60 minutes. And so but what's the cost of that versus the cost of your own time?
Entirely, 100%. And that's an opportunity cost too, because whilst it might take you 5 hours or you might pay a small sum for someone to do an hour, you could spend 5 hours on the thing that you're really great at. It's exponential, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So the opportunity cost of not doing that might mean that you don't get 2 bookings, but you saved $60.
Yeah.
It's not really worth it.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, it's something we love to do. Yeah. And what I really want to see more of is people doing the thing that they're passionate about. What are the things that you're really passionate about? If you're passionate about it, you're going to be good at it, just because that's the way the world works.
Yes.
And if there's something you're not really that interested in, you're not going to give all of your love to it. But someone who does love it will do it in a shorter amount of time. So that's the way I think about it. But I like the diary idea. I think it's a great one too.
I was going to say, turned up some surprises, I must say.
Yeah.
I was going to say, as a little takeaway activity to do that, keep a diary. It's like going to the doctor and they say, can you keep a diary for a week of what you eat or what you... And then that opens your eyes and you go, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize when you add it all up, you add up the time spent on that. You add up, wow, I could be using that time to do the things you're passionate about.
Bang on.
Or you might find that you're doing the same thing in a different way over and over, and you go, I've just actually got to develop a system that helps my team understand what they need to do, and then we won't be spending that half an hour over and over doing that.
Such a great point. And that brings us right back full circle to the education piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, 100%. But also we want, ultimately our goal, or most people's goal, is to make ourselves redundant. And by that, I don't mean that we aren't working. You should absolutely still be working if that's what you want to do. But to know that if something happened to you, the business would keep going is such a great insurance policy, and it's free. So giving power to other people to be able to keep this thing going is also really important.
Also, that working on your business and not in your business is something that we often talk about as well. And if you want your business to thrive, it's hard for small businesses to keep an eye on everything, but you need that mental space and that time to sort of look over in an overarching way at what's going on in the business, rather than jumping in your 4-wheel drive because that you believe that you're the only person that can do it. So I think that there's the taking time out from the nitty-gritty of what goes on every day to look at how the business is going and what should be happening is also helicopter view. Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's great. I just wanted to remind everyone, please feel free to pop any questions in the chat as we go along, and we can jump to those at any time. Because we're going to turn our attention to tax, Bex.
Oh, everyone loves tax.
Everyone loves tax. It's inevitable, right? So, but I guess it's about understanding from you, Kathy and Kristen, why tax planning matters for our businesses. What is tax planning as opposed to reacting, I guess, and why and when should businesses be doing it?
Well, the obvious answer to why tax planning is important is that if you pay too much tax, then you're actually sending wealth away from your business. Okay, so by doing a little bit of planning and thinking about the timing of things and thinking about deductibility of aspects of your business, you can retain some of those profits in your own hands. Then to me, that's a win. So that's very simply how I look at it. And the cash. Yeah.
The other big thing, of course, going back to our knowledge is power, turns out to be a theme. The predicting what's coming up, it gives you nearly a year's head start on what might be a big tax bill, for instance.
Yeah.
So just knowing in advance how to plan your income installments, the tax installments, for instance, or knowing what's coming up and being able to steal your term, to pivot on what our installments are. We might be able to vary them down or vary them up to smooth our cash flow. Ultimately, that's the goal. We want people to know no surprises is the number one goal.
No surprises. It's very important. And we started with cash flow and we've just doubled back to it again.
Absolutely. It's all intertwined, isn't it? And so I guess in terms of the when and the how, Kristen, you said about 12 months, looking ahead 12 months. Is that your thinking? Is it sort of the lead up to the end of financial year that you're looking to the next financial year? What does that look like from a
So right now, between March and June of this year, we will now be doing all of the planning for all of our clients so that they can set in stone what the 2024 financial year looks like, and we can button it off. For different reasons, we have to do certain things. If you have a trust, for instance, everyone must decide where the trust money goes before June 30, and you have to sign something called a resolution and make sure that happens. So in some instances, you just must plan to do it. But when I talk about a year, May 15 is the final payment date for tax next year for 2024 year. So if right now we're sitting at the end of April and we're able to predict what 2024 looks like, I can tell you in 12 months' time how much your tax will be, and I can help you smooth. I say we can help smooth out what that looks like by paying some extra installments now, just so that it's a happy line and it's predictable. All comes back to that predictability is really important.
Absolutely, and no surprises.
Yeah, you don't want to get to April next year and your accountant says to you, okay, your tax is done and you owe the government $100,000 by May 15, which is in 3 weeks' time. And then also, just because the government like prepayments, you'll also be paying that exact same amount again in July because you didn't pay enough throughout the year. And so you have that double whammy, and you can really start to understand why people struggle with cash, because we're not helping people be understanding and knowledgeable about the prediction.
Yeah.
So the other part of tax planning is looking at some of the things that you can do to if you've had a very good profit year, then you might decide to pay a little bit extra in super, or you might have been looking at a vehicle that you've wanted to buy, or you might need to sort of just pay out some annual leave for your team and things like that. So we look at all aspects of what the business is doing to then assess, well, we know what we're expecting the profitability to be. Is there anything else that we should be doing before the end of the year, including trust resolutions, to make sure that you've sort of made decisions that will happily impact the level of tax that you might have to pay.
Yeah, great.
Gives you choice. Yeah. Gives you some options.
Excellent. And what about the ATO's super guarantee charge? We hear that the ATO is starting to enforce this charge. Hopefully none of our attendees have received this letter from the ATO, but we'd just rather help our community get on the front foot and avoid being in this situation. Can you just talk us through that super guarantee charge and what businesses need to be aware of?
You can do this one. Oh, the horrible one. I don't want my name associated with it.
Look, at the end of every quarter, businesses are supposed to contribute the right amount of super based on the 11% super charge that the government expects, and they have to have it done by the 21st of the following month, which means realistically, because of how slow some of the clearinghouses are, you've got to have it paid within the first 2 weeks of that month. It's if you don't get it right, it's a very expensive thing to get wrong. And the ATO have started contacting clients to say, we've noticed that you haven't paid your super on time. And there's a process that you go through to sort of basically, hand on heart, tell the tax office, yes, these are the amounts of super we haven't paid on time. They charge you an admin fee, they charge you interest, they don't allow you to make that deduction for super. It's a terrible, terrible thing to get wrong. And so we are having a bit of a drive with our clients to make it very clear that we have to pay it on time.
And the worst part about it, so you spoke a lot, this is for people who employ people. This is the thing it's going to impact if you have wages in your business. But one of the things that is happening is if the government don't send you the letter and you think, oh, they've missed it, all that will happen is that in a year or 2 years that you're going to get a letter. And instead of the interest being for 3 months or 6 months, it's going to be for 1 year and 6 months, or 2 years and 6 months. It's just going to get worse. And that's why we're trying to educate people on what's actually happening.
Talk about no surprises. To have that little birdie sitting behind your ear for,
Particularly if people thought they did the right thing and they paid by the 21st, but the period of time it takes to physically get into the bank of the super fund that is your employee's super fund. If it didn't make it there, you're in trouble.
Wow.
Yeah, the date is about when the super fund receives and allocates that money to the employees.
Okay, not the day the business does the transaction.
Yeah.
Interesting. And for people who use, not to bag Xero, if everyone used it, I love Xero, but in Xero I've noticed that even in there, when lodge your super, it still says pay by the date that it is meant to be in the fund. It really should have a different date on it. They know that it takes 5 days to get from your bank to the super fund's bank. Right. So that's a little bit of a folly too, so be mindful of that.
Okay. Great advice. Thank you. And a reminder again, if anyone wants to ask any questions, please pop them in there. I know this is riveting topics, tax and super.
They're really important though, so
Oh,
you know.
so important. And I
Yeah.
just love how you bring it back to the cash flow for the business. And that's what's tough for everyone at the moment. So what are these things, these pieces of the puzzle that all play into that? But look, we've done the tough stuff, cash flow, tax. Let's get a bit more inspiring and exciting. I'd love to talk about the use of technology in business. We know we all need to work smarter, not harder, but it does feel like there's a mountain to climb these days. You know, when you see and hear about how we should be incorporating AI applications and other technology into our businesses. So from your perspective, where are we and what should businesses be considering so we can keep up and maximise those new opportunities from technology?
Well, I think that our tourism members would be very surprised to know they already use so much of it. Every single day we're using it anyway. So if you're advertising on any of those apps, and I can't think of any at the top of my head, but like an Airbnb or whatever, you know, all of those things.
Booking.com.
Booking.com. It's all AI. The file that we use to keep all of your records, so you link your bank into Xero, it's all AI. So we use lots of that kind of stuff. Maps.
Yeah.
You send a map or a pin to people who are using your service, it's all AI. So we use it already heaps, but I've started using it a little bit to make my life a bit simpler. When we talk about high power activities, full circle again, we're now using, or trialing at least, this thing called Otter, which takes our meeting notes and writes a transcript, but that's not sexy at all. But what it does do is you can inquire and ask it to tell you the top 3 actions out of today's meeting, for instance. Brilliant. There's things that you can use to write your marketing if we can't all afford a marketer, right? They're very expensive. So we can write ads using AI. You can have headlines using AI. So many things. Where do I start?
Yes. And it's going to get more and more, but those individual things that we've just talked about can make such a huge difference. And using them in a really smart way can have high impact on your marketing, or high impact on sort of, I suppose, freeing up some time, you know, that high value activity. Yeah. So you free up some time by sort of doing some really smart things and using technology in a way that suits you. It has to suit you, but I think that we're just going to see more and more of it. We've just done a blog on that, haven't we?
Yeah, I did. I've got an article we can share. Yeah.
Oh, we can share that. That would be great. Because I was going to ask, what are your recommendations for SMEs when it comes to leaning into new technologies to support their business?
It depends on what they're doing.
Yeah.
Depends on what they're doing. And it depends on, like that high power activity thing, what is it that you want help with? There's an app for everything and AI for everything.
Yeah.
One thing I would advise, though, is we don't just sign up for all of the things. Sign up for one, sign up for 2, but use them really well, because we're very keen these days, especially with subscription models, to just click and then think that's really cool. And then before you know it, 12 months has passed and you haven't used it, or you haven't used it to its full capability. So that feeds back into our cash flow and making sure our overheads are tight and our processes are tight and that we're not wasting.
Yeah. I imagine there's also a simple thing, coming back to Kathy's suggestion of keeping a diary. You kept your diary, you've identified some things that you could really do with spending less time on. And now, okay, let's try and tackle, writing my social media posts by using an app for the next 2 months. And now let's do my diary again, or something along those lines.
100%. You know? Because and even if it's not writing the ad, but it's making sure that every 3 days we're posting an Instagram thing. There's an app for that. You can load them all in on one morning, and then for the next month, just have them firing off. So all of that is AI. So I really think that if we reflect, we use it a lot more than we think. It's not as scary as we think either.
Absolutely. And I guess really it's also about not letting them do all the thinking. So it does some of the doing, but you've still, coming back to your point, you need to have the knowledge of what's happening and why to be able to know is what's coming out quality, or what additional work do you need to do?
And is it the essence of you? Because you can let AI write something, you will have to rewrite it to make sure, but it gives you a basis to start. You have to add the essence of you. You never want to lose that.
No, that's right. And AI can still make mistakes, or they don't quite get the very basics of what you're trying to do. So it's a tool. It's not an end in itself.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good point.
Yeah.
Just going to encourage people again. No one's popped any questions forward yet. I'm sure they're thirsty, but that's okay. I did have one question in advance, guys, which was just a question about whether you help with developing business plans.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Business plans, yes, that's probably an old school word. More what you really want is, where do I want to take this thing and what do I need from it? And then a backwards look at the stepping stages that you need to be able to do it. Yes, definitely a plan. You need to know who your market is. Do you want more market share, or do you just want to keep it small and make more profit out of that? So you need to know who your customers are. Yeah, what do you want out of it, really? And when I say that, it's not money. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, where do you see yourself spending time in 10 years' time?
Yeah, and so the plan, or the sort of the setting up the strategy, we then break it down into smaller steps, which are action points, and part of what we do, because it's been well known in our industry and the business advisor industry for a while, that accountability, or the actual taking the steps that you've agreed you need to do, often needs a little bit of attention, because we all get super busy and we go, oh yes, I was meant to do that, but I haven't quite, got those posts or those Insta posts all sort of ready to go. And all of a sudden, the best planning in the world, or the best direction in the world, means nothing unless you actually are disciplined about how to get there. So we do that as well, right?
And I guess, again, coming full circle to the earlier comments about freeing up time to work on your business, not just in your business as well, enabling that to happen.
That's right.
Great. Well, I'm coming to my last question, so I'm going to let everyone know, speak now or forever hold your peace. But before I do go to that question, I just thought I'd let everyone know Altitude Advisory is, as a wonderful partner of ours, they have a member offer for our members, which is a 1-hour consultation with any of our members if they'd like to discuss their accounting and business needs, or to solve a specific problem. And we can send through contact details for Kathy and Kristen in the follow-up email to this. But also, if you wanted to dive further face-to-face, next week, we are bringing Kathy and Tony, not Kristen, but Tony, another team member, to the Barossa for a 3.5-hour face-to-face workshop. And so that's from 2 o'clock on Tuesday the 30th. And again, we can pop that link in there. Only $20 for TIXA members, $40 for non-members. But really to step through and give you some practical assistance on some of these areas that we've been talking about today, including that strategic planning as well, and the things to think about. So would love to have some of you there if you wanted to join us in person. And lastly, Altitude are also going to be holding a shorter version of this workshop at our SA Tourism Conference. So the first day of our conference this year is a day full of workshops and masterclasses galore. And one of the workshops is going to be being delivered by Kathy as well. So we'll send those links through. Tickets are on sale for conference at the moment, if you haven't already seen all the news.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we're really pleased. It's just such an important thing at any time, but particularly at this point in time, being better at business in tough economic times is what our workshop next week is called, and hopefully that explains exactly what we'll be working through. So look, we don't have any more questions there, but what I'd love to end with is your top 3 takeaways and tips for the businesses who have joined us today?
Oh,
I'll go. I'll go. I think the top tip is that knowledge is power, and there are no stupid questions. And if you don't have an advisor who can answer questions for you and teach you along the way, then we maybe should think about if it's the right one for you, because the goal is to have a collaboration rather than a don't worry about it, I'll fix it for you mentality. Knowledge is power would be my number one. And cash flow is king is true. It is the key to everything. So predictability, knowing where the cash is coming in, or at least best predicting when the cash is coming in, and also the outflows is really important. It all comes back to the profitability of the business, yes, but your balance sheet. And that's why education is so important. That's 2. Have you got a third?
and I think the third one is to understand your brand and value what you do for your customers. Don't downplay the fact that you're offering something to people that they really want to take up, and don't devalue it on price, but also really once you do that, you are able to market yourself so much more confidently, to understand that you have a place in the industry that is unique. And I think that that's a really important thing to keep in mind. That's not financial, that's just you as the business.
But it's value. It's value of absolutely.
It's so true. And always remember that the first sale is to yourself. If you don't believe it, no one else will. So yeah, be passionate.
I like that.
Stay passionate.
And we've got an industry of passionate people, which is
Yes,
really
we've noticed that, and we love watching that space. It's really exciting to see.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. We have had a question come through. Can you guys outline the difference between an accountant and a financial advisor? Can the one person be both? And what's your thoughts on this?
So I picked up on financial advisor, so I'm going to speak to that. So accountant, an accountant has an accounting degree and understands everything to do with tax and structure and that kind of thing. Financial advisor deals with stocks and shares and estate planning and future. Yes, there is an overlap between a business advisor as we see it and a financial advisor, in that a business advisor also will map out your life cycle, if you like, and make sure that we're building today to end up at your end goal. But as far as accounting goes, and whilst we are accountants, we love being in front of people. If you want my honest answer, an accountant will just sit behind a computer screen and tell you everything that has happened, and we want to tell you what's coming up and help you plan for that. Does that help answer that?
Yeah, the old style accountant deals with history just as much as anything else. We're more forward looking because we're working with businesses to achieve what they want to achieve.
Yeah, great.
Well said.
Hopefully we've got a thumbs up there. So I think that hopefully that's helped answer that
I'll
question.
ask again if you, sorry if we didn't answer that correctly.
Yeah, no, and sorry, it's just Jay Mitchell, not sure your first name, otherwise I'd use it. If you feel free to pop yourself off mute if you wanted to clarify anything.
We'd love that.
No. Oh, sorry, can't at work. That's okay.
Oh, yes, understand.
Love it. Not a problem at all. All right.
Book in and have a chat with us. We're happy to talk to anyone anyway.
Exactly. Highly recommend it. We will send through those contact details. So if you are a member or want to take up that offer, that it's there, as well as those opportunities to join those face-to-face workshops we've got coming up as well. But without any other questions coming through, Kristen, Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today. I think we covered quite a few different facets of business planning. And really excited to have you guys on board as TIC's corporate partner.
We are so chuffed, and we cannot wait to meet more of your members. Thank you so much, Christina.
Wonderful.
Come see me in the Barossa if you've got some time.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And a good day tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.